Tour Junkies. We're the Tour Junkies.
What's going on, golf addicts? Welcome to the Tour Junkies golf show on the Better Sports Network, and it is Ryder Cup week. DB here. I'm wearing my 2016 Ryder Cup t-shirt that I got out of the closet.
Beautiful.
Got my allergies all messed up. Pat's rocking the 2018 infamous not Hazeltine, Brookline 99 t-shirt that we remade and wore in Paris. We're ready. We're ready for Team USA to dominate Team Europe like they did 2 years ago, Whistling Straits. But unlike they've done since 1993 was the last time the U.S. team won on European soil to lift the trophy in the Ryder Cup. Can't wait to get it going. It starts on Friday. For those of you who don't know, we got a good show for you today. It's all Ryder Cup all day. We're going to talk about some Ryder Cup, some storylines, the golf course, the format that you need to know. We're going to talk about some of our favorite Ryder Cup memories at the end of the show. But in the middle, we've got a special guest coming on here in just a minute. The Model Maniac, Byron, is going to join us. And boy, has he put in an immense amount of work into the Ryder Cup and looked at it from all possible angles. He's run the numbers. We're going to talk about some data points that he thinks are key to handicapping this golf tournament, and also some of his favorite bets. We're going to get into his favorite bets, some prop market bets, which are already out right now. We've got some bets that we like. We're going to firm those up as the week progresses. But Pat, I mean, it's a big week, and not just that. I mean, I think we do have to say to the people that it's also the biggest week of the year for us, because our biggest major of the golf year for us is a member guest, usually my member guest at Champions Retreat. That is this weekend as well. Our stupid head pro decided to schedule it the same week of the Ryder Cup. So we will also be playing as our fellow compatriots are competing in Europe. We'll be playing at Champions Retreat Friday and Saturday as well, the member guest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I don't like the fact that we're going to have to, I'm already been texting you because I got to figure out a way that we can watch this while we're playing golf. We don't want to be too distracted because, as you say, it's a major. But I'm definitely looking forward to the weekend, to the Ryder Cup. By the way, how old were you in 1993, the last time we won?
I would have been 9 years old, turning 10 later that year in December.
Yeah. So much life ahead of you.
So much life ahead of me at that point. Not anymore.
I was 15 or 16.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were starting
to get my license. Yeah.
Yeah. Pick up chicks. You didn't even care about the Ryder Cup at that point, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
I can't say it.
No.
Okay.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the format, because I think people, if you're watching on the Better Sports Network and you're not a diehard golf fan, you just happen to be tuning in, you may not know kind of the format, how things work for the Ryder Cup. But let us help educate you here. So it's obviously a team event. You've got 12 players on USA, 12 players on Team Europe, competing in match play throughout the golf tournament. It does start on Friday. It's going to be around 1:30 a.m. Eastern is when it starts. And there's going to be, you've got the first 2 days, you've got kind of 2 sessions each day. You've got foursomes and you've got 4-ball. And it can be confusing. Foursomes is alternate shot. That's what that is. So one player hits the tee shot, the next player hits the approach. They alternate until they get the ball in the hole. One score for each team. Okay. Then in 4-ball, which is the second session on Friday and the second session on Saturday, that one is best ball. So each player in the group, all 4 players, 2 for US, 2 for Europe, are going to play their own golf ball. Lowest score on each hole is what the team is going to get credited for that hole. So me and Pat are representing Team USA, and Pat gets a 4 and I get a 5, and we're going to take Pat's 4 as our score. That's 4-ball. Just the way I always remember it, if you forget it, is 4-ball means there are 4 golf balls in play. One for all 4 players in the group. Whereas alternate shot, there are only 2 golf balls in play. One for Team Europe, one for Team USA. That's how you can kind of remember it. So it's foursomes and then 4-ball on Friday and then Saturday. So 8 total matches Friday, 8 total matches Saturday. So that means that every player from each team may not play, is not going to play in each session. There will be players who the captain chooses to sit for a certain session. And then there's going to be guys who play every single match. And then on Sunday is really where the rubber meets the road. That is the singles matches. That is 12 matches. So every player on each team will be playing a 1v1 head-to-head match starting at 5:35 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. And that is where I believe 9 of the last 10 Ryder Cups, whichever USA or Team Europe has won the singles overall, has ended up lifting the trophy and winning the Ryder Cup. So that's the overall breakdown and kind of the format. Pat, do you think I'm missing anything with that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, and the thing is one of the reasons that we've seen the Europeans win a lot of Ryder Cups, for the most part, they kind of turned the tide a little bit in the '90s because we dominated for a while. Is in singles. They really they just had
Yeah.
their guys there that just like your Ian Poulters, your Garcias. They just get fired up for singles, and that's really where they've made their hay with the wins. And so that's really what we're going to have to do on. This year in Rome, despite what people may think of which team is better on paper, which a lot of people would say the Europeans are better. I mean, the Europeans are not as good as the U.S. team, but they just tend to dominate the singles. Another thing I'll say is this, and we'll probably get into this more when we get into betting, but you said something that I think is very important, and that is that not every player is going to play every session. So when you start to look at the bets, and a lot of the bets that are out there are like who's going to have the most points, or for the US or for Europe or whatever, you also got to think a little bit more, besides who do you think might just win a lot. You got to think of like who might get skipped in a session, who's going to get sat. So that's kind of something that you want to think through when you're looking at your bets.
Yep. And typically, we know this, like, match play is just kind of a different animal. It's not like scroach play. What the fresh hell was that?
Yeah.
Scroach play? It's
Yeah.
not like stroke play. Where I think these guys would kind of tell you in stroke play, they're not necessarily worried about what the guy they're playing in that group is doing. They're focused on playing their best golf and making the best decision for them every shot. Whereas in match play, you are truly only contending against the guy in your group or the pair in your group, and there's more gamesmanship involved. There's a little more adjustment on the fly of strategies based on what your opponent is doing. So there's those things. And I think, the sentiment over the decades has always been that in Europe, they just tend to play more match play than US than Americans do. Like when we go out and play, we just play very little match play. We play a lot of stroke play stuff. But I think in some ways the tide's kind of changing. And I think on paper, you mentioned how, some would say the U.S. team on paper looks to be the more dominant. And I definitely think the U.S. team is deeper. And I think that's the overall consensus.
Yeah.
Is starting to see content come out. You're seeing people, admit to that. Like the U.S. team is just deeper. Those last 4 or 5 guys out of the 12 just seem to be better overall than what Europe is bringing. But in recent history, that just hasn't really mattered. Like outside of Whistling Straits, when we kicked Europe's ass, it didn't matter in 2018 when we were there in Paris. We were the far superior team on paper and just got absolutely demolished. So it's just a funny thing. I think overall, when it comes to handicapping this thing, and this is now our fourth Ryder Cup since we started podcasting? I think overall, some of the stuff you just kind of have to do a little bit of, you just kind of throw it out the window, right? This is a little bit of a gut feel situation. You want all the data, you want all the analysis, you want to be informed, but there's just some things that are just going to be weird at the Ryder Cup. You know what I mean? It just hits different. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Marco Simone is the golf course which hosts the Italian Open frequently. Par 71. It's not overly long to me, around 71 to 7,200 yards. The fairways seemingly a little wider than what we saw at Le Golf National when Europe last hosted in 2018. But we've heard about the rough, right? And I even was listening to some press conferences today from the likes of Tommy Fleetwood and Ludwig Aberg and Sepp Straka, definitely talking about how the rough is difficult. But it's not. I don't think they didn't seem like it was anything that they weren't used to seeing on tough, either major championship venues or other Ryder Cup venues in the past. That Fleetwood mentioned that it's kind of graduated. So as you get further away from it, it obviously gets worse. But it's a little more forgiving off the tee than I think Le Golf National set up to be. And I think a lot of that is probably because Luke Donald knows that his team the European team is just as bomb and gouge heavy, if you ask me, as the U.S. team, and that was not the case in 2018 at Le Golf National. It was that you had more precision players, more accuracy types on that roster for Europe in 2018. So I don't know. I didn't. I've done some digging into the course, but like, do you think that this golf course is really going to favor anybody that much more than the next team?
No, I mean, in the 4 that we've kinda covered, I mean, I think this course sets up to be, you know, just as good for both sides. I really haven't seen a huge advantage, and I'm, still looking at it, but it just doesn't seem like it's set up, to favor any one team just as much as like what we saw in Paris, which when you and I were there, I mean, you walk out on that course and you could tell this is, we're in trouble. There's some things we're in trouble here, but I don't see it as much here. You mean you've got some drivable par 4s, you got par 5s that are scoreable,
Yeah.
and like you said, a little bit wider fairways, but I think it's kind of strength versus strength on both teams. They both have, kind of the bombers that can hit it a long way. They've got some good ball strikers. It really is even across the board. I feel like for the most part with the strengths of both these teams, I just don't see a huge advantage on this course setup like I feel like I've seen in the past, whether it was at Hazeltine or at Le Golf National, or even Whistling Straits too. I felt like we had a little bit of an advantage there.
Yeah. I think us having been to Hazeltine, been to Le Golf National in Paris, and then I was listening to Tommy Fleetwood talk today about the home course advantage factor and the fans. And like, what if you had to quantify in terms of points, Ryder Cup points, right? Which by the way, so 28 total matches, 28 total points up for grabs. The team that gets to 14 and a half points or more wins the Ryder Cup. If there's a tie 14-14, then the Ryder Cup stays with the defending champion, which would be the Team USA right now. But if you had to define the course, the home course advantage and all that means, whether it's you had more more say so in the setup, which by the way, the course is set up now how it's going to be set up. When they arrive on Monday, they can't make any more major changes to the golf course. So like Captain Donald can't pull a fast one on Thursday night and change something. So the golf course setup is what it is now. But between the course setup, between all the prior, maybe prior trips to Marco Simone, prior experiences at Marco Simone, all the analytics of Team Europe, right, with Eduardo Molinari and all that. If you could give it a number of points or a fraction of points, what do you think it's worth? The home fans. I mean, we were there for, again, a U.S. Ryder Cup at Hazeltine and a European one at Le Golf National, and we were on the advantage side one year, and we were definitely on the disadvantage side in Europe. How would you? Is it worth a quarter of a point? Is it worth a half a point? Is it worth a full match, a full point?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to answer. I felt like in Hazeltine, it was worth a lot. Like, I just felt like the home field advantage at Hazeltine was unbelievably just like it made a factor, especially in like that huge match that everybody talks about between Rory and Patrick Reed. I just felt like there was a difference in a lot of ways. I don't know if I'd put it at a full point, but you got to give it at least a half a point.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a half point thing. Like I was thinking about it in terms of like NFL lines, right? We usually give the home field some sort of a built-in advantage there, home field advantage there, whether it's 3 points or whatever they do. And I think Tommy was talking about the crowd and how it's just different when when they're on your side and when they're pulling for you, whether you're playing really well and you're feeding off of it, or you're playing really poorly and they're picking you up. It feels like they give you something to keep fighting for when you're down, is kind of what Tommy was talking about. I think there's something to it. I mean, I just think the Ryder Cup is that way. I think, and anyone who tries to tell you that, you're overthinking it or it doesn't matter that much, these guys are golfers and they want to go out and do do what they want to do. There's something to the energy of the Ryder Cup, and we felt it on both sides.
I agree. I do think though that it can work both ways, which is why I wouldn't put it like over a point, because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of players. Patrick Reed would be one of them. He's not here this year, but that thrive when they hate him and when they're mad at him or whatever. That they want him almost booing at him. I mean, Rory did that in Hazeltine. I mean, same thing. Everybody was booing Rory, and he was just putting on an absolute show.
Yeah.
So it can work both ways, which is why I wouldn't give it like, bigger than a half point or so advantage.
Yeah, Poulter always historically
Yeah.
leaned into that. I think Koepka's a guy who loves it when he probably prefers it to be on European soil. I mean, we saw Brian Harman take advantage of that, or say that when that guy said something to him at the Open Championship a few holes in, like there's no way you're winning this thing. It kind of riled him up. So I think you're right. That could be a both sides situation, but I think that kind of thing matters way more than and just general preparation and the analytics side, the understanding of the golf course, understanding where to attack certain holes. I know there's a lot of dog legs here. There's some angles that are going to be at play here. I do think if both sides do that well, then there's really very little course advantage. It's really just home crowd, home vibes advantage. So it'll be interesting to see. I just think more is made. I think you're better off looking into that or thinking through that than spending too much time breaking down the course. Match play is just different. All right, so we got to get to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to take our friend Byron, the Model Maniac. We're going to go through some of the crazy things. This dude has spent so many hours breaking down this event. I'm excited to talk to him about what he's found on the golf course, some of his thoughts on some of these players, as well as his favorite bets and props. So stay right here. Coming right back to Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network.
I like to eat my feelings. So when I'm like super sad, single serving pint sizes of Ben and Jerry's, I just start shoveling that in, and it makes me feel bigger and better. But so let's eat our feelings here. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk football players, food. We're gonna pair them up. Who is represented by what food? All right, I want to just shout out Hal Alexander in there for CMC, Christian McCaffrey, is Rocky Road ice cream. A little bit of everything.
Yeah,
does it?
Good Hal.
I like it, man. You know it. I love me some Rocky Road ice cream. Bijan Robinson prime rib. You know what? Bijan Robinson prime rib with a baked potato and some cream spinach on the side. That's what I'm talking about. That is the King's dinner. And Bijan Robinson, I don't care if the dude from The Athletic says only 301, touches. You know what? In honor of Card Sharks, I'm going to say, guys, that I think that number is going to be a little bit higher there for Bijan Robinson. So get your knife, get your fork, you got your steak, you got your Bijan.
Yeah, that's what's up. You're on death row, and they say you get one last meal, and you just say Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Love it.
I got to jump in on one real quick because Mr. Scamper said Kareem Hunt is candy corn, and I actually had a player, Tyler Boyd, was going to be candy corn for me, and basically it's that nobody likes it, but it's always there. It's always there, and somebody always puts their hand in and grabs some and has some, and they're like, well, and afterwards they're like, why did I eat that? That's Tyler Boyd. He always gets drafted, and he's just kind of there, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why they take him. Nobody knows where it comes from. Where does the candy corn even come from? Like, it's just there. It's just there.
Making you money in daily fantasy sports and golf betting. Tour Junkies on Better Sports Network.
We love playing the contest over at Underdog Fantasy, and know you will as well. And if you don't like it, well, that's probably a you problem. Actually, I know it's a you problem because Underdog Fantasy is great. They've got all kinds of fantasy contests from pick'ems to drafts, and we've had a blast doing them for the NFL and for PGA. And right now, first-time depositors get a 100% deposit match up to $100. All you got to do is use promo code BETTER, BETTOR, or you can use promo code JUNKIES, JUNKIES, at fantasyalarm.com/underdogfantasy if you want to get started and play over there. The pick'em contests are fantastic. Do them all the time for NFL. Do them all the time for PGA. Get involved. All right, welcome back to the Tour Junkies Golf Show, talking Ryder Cup. And listen, this guy, he just put in so much work. I feel like he should be rewarded for all the work, and just he should be on the world tour of shows and podcasts and all that, because it's been fantastic stuff. And he's not even American, and he's not even European. He's South African.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? Let's find out from the man himself, Byron, the Model Maniac. Welcome, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and you boys? No, I'm just kidding. Trying to be my best American as I can. Got my I-80 truck stop hat on and the USA shirt. And
I-80 truck stop.
the I-80 truck stop, baby.
No,
Zach Johnson.
no Buc-ee's?
Largest truck stop.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should have you need to get a
Yeah, you need a
Buc-ee's hat.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I've only been here for 11 years, so we'll get it figured out slowly. But happy to be on a show with my two favorite boys, and it's just going to be a fun time chatting some Ryder Cup, man. Really appreciate you hyping up my work I did over there at Rotoballer. And like I said to you guys in the studio, it was swam a little too far from the shore and couldn't quite get back. So I had to just keep swimming, and there we were, with a monstrous article that I don't know how useful it is to people or not, but go and check it out if you're in the mood.
Yeah, man. It's really good stuff over there on Rotoballer. And if you're not already following Byron, you need to follow him on Twitter at the Model Maniac. Does stuff for Rotoballer and host of the Back Nine Bets podcast. So, Byron, I guess first off, like, forget all your bets, okay? Forget like wanting to be, because us content people, we want to get all the things right that we put out there in the ethosphere, right?
Yes.
But just as a fan, you're wearing a USA shirt. Are you pulling for USA or are you pulling for Europe in this thing?
Let's go for USA, baby. I was rooting for Europe probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago when I was still, making my way downtown, walking fast in Iowa, and now we're kind of there,
Okay.
And I feel like it's their time. Everyone likes how they're approaching underdog status, but on Euro soil, they're the underdogs, right? And everyone loves a good American dog. So I'm a big fan of getting behind them, going over there, try and break that 30-year drought and see what we can get up to.
Boy, yeah, it's been quite the drought. So,
yeah.
All right. So in this article on Rotoballer, if people don't know, go check it out. And we'll promote it as much as we can. But you did so much on this thing. You did a super deep dive on the golf course, on every player, on trends in the Ryder Cup. And obviously we're going to talk about your favorite bets and stuff. But before we do that, talk to us about the things about Marco Simone that you think in terms of the golf course are really going to matter, in terms of what you found in the data about Marco Simone, what you've heard in terms of recent setup changes that may be different from what it plays in the Italian Open or whatever. Like, your thoughts on the course overall, and if people are wanting to handicap this thing and make some bets or play something on DraftKings, what do they need to know about Marco Simone?
Absolutely. So you guys were mentioning earlier how European tour players are now very identical because they play a lot of PGA Tour golf, right? So these kind of golfers are the same type of players. They have the same skill set, bombers off the tee, all that jazz. So it's going to be tough to set this course up to suit Europe in a specific way, like as a general macro approach. But when you want to take a look at pairings, I think that's where the nuances of this golf course really comes in. And going off the odd tees, you're going to have guys that can really excel with their iron play. You want long iron players on the odds, and you want good drivers of the golf ball on the evens. 3 par 3s on the odd holes. And then there's, I think, one of the drivable par 4s and 2 par 5s that happen before the 18th hole that will require good drivers of the golf ball. So if you can, a Patrick Cantley, Xander Schauffele combination is ideal for that kind of setup. Expect Xander to be going off on, the odd hole. So that's going to be how you can do that one way. And then, the par 5 18th, you only see guys make it to the 18th about 2/3 of the time in match play in Ryder Cup history, right? So a lot of those big important holes towards the end of the stretch aren't going to even make its way in there. So I kind of weighted those holes a little less as I did hole by hole projections for each guys. And, long iron players are important. And then if you're going off on the other tees, you want to be a good wedge player and a good putter. So there's going to be interesting pairings that are going to have to set up nicely for each different team. And depending on how the captains roll them out is going to be influential on the results.
And obviously that would matter way more on alternate shot. I mean, best ball, it's probably a factor, but 4-ball, it's probably a factor, but foursomes, that probably matters a lot more.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, you can see, because certain golfers are still pretty good, like Max Homa, for instance, is going to dominate on par 3s, while if you want Max with Patrick Cantley, who's one of the best par 5 players on tour, you can have him taking care of the par 5s while Max takes care of the par 4s, and then kind of meet in the middle there on the par 4s. So you can balance it out nicely, or you can really try and dovetail the crap out of it somehow in the 4-ball situation. So it's interesting to see how these captains are going to roll them out.
When you're looking at, we're always, when we're looking at just a normal tour event, we're always putting models together and things like that for, how we want to choose a player to win or whatever. But, when you're looking at stat models for this, what are your going to be like your major ones that you're putting the most weight into as far as just your normal stats on tour?
Yeah, birdie percentage for the four ball matchups and a little bit of singles. And then you want just good, solid strokes gain players for the foursomes. Like I think guys like Matthew Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, if they find themselves in four ball matches this week, things have gone wrong for the Euros because those two guys are like one of the worst birdie makers on the PGA Tour. You need to be making birdies when everyone's playing best ball, right? You can't be racking out pars there. That's the same thing as JT and Spieth. I'd imagine they go off on the foursomes because they just haven't been making enough birdies lately. Foursomes, on the other hand, scramble, make pars, do all that jazz. So short game putting, accuracy off the tee, kind of avoiding those big issues, I think is going to be very key for the foursome side of things. But then, you get the stats that are just, they're there, and then you get under pressure, and then what? Like the wheels can fall off, the sandwich can get overcooked, whatever you want to call it. It's just what it is, and I think that's the tough thing about going over to Europe. And like you guys were talking about earlier, is like JT is on this team most likely on European soil to be that antagonist, the Patrick Reed of the bunch. I don't even know if he would have made the team if they were playing on US soil. Like we don't need that spearhead catalyst on the squad. So team dynamics and things like that play a big role too.
Yeah. Well, is there anything before we get to the bets? Is there anything in doing all that research that you did that, like, what was the one thing that you were kind of surprised to find, or something that as you started digging deeper, you thought was way more interesting than you may have anticipated? Anything like that in all the data that you dug into?
Yeah. Matthew Fitzpatrick paired up with Victor Hovland is one of the craziest matchups. If you put them in a foursome situation, and I can't remember which tee it was, but with Fitz, I think hitting the long irons and Vic hitting the drives, that pairing sees the biggest switch in like overall projections if you just switch around the same guys, but you just switch around the tees. That's how the scores. Yeah. It's like 0.3 strokes gain total out of 2 that they lose just by switching around the tees. And that to me was just incredible to see how in that foursomes format, a tee selection can really change the outcome of a game. And then I expect, all 3 of those top Euro players to play 5 matches. I know it's going to be hard, but I think just looking at the depth, like Bobby Mack making the team without a captain selection, he would never. I wish Luke probably had 7 selections and Bobby didn't make it in, right? Because he's an anchor that they're just lugging around there, big old Scottish bag of sand. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how many times they roll him out. I've got him at 2 because he's very bad.
Yeah. What so speaking of, I saw there you kind of attempted, which valiant effort on your part. I mean, most people, including myself, aren't even going to try to do this. You attempted to project on these pairings, like where you thought these guys were going to play, who you thought they were going to play with. You talked about the Hovland Fitzpatrick pairing, which I don't know that anyone else has talked about or thought about those two playing together. If you had to, if you were putting money on kind of a long shot pairing to get paired together that people may not be thinking about or talking about on either side, who do you think that is?
I think a Colin Morikawa, Brian Harman foursomes combination is a really sneaky good pairing. If you think about Brian Harman being the best putter in the field of the 24 guys, and Colin Morikawa being the most accurate driver of the golf ball and a really good iron player.
Yeah.
That combination in foursomes, you can have Brian putting a lot of birdie putts that Colin misses all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty close. Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying Brooks and Harman and Colin and Max. I think Harman and Colin are just the way to go. And, they both very accurate off the tee, and Colin can hit those longer irons that Brian's going to leave him in the fairway with. Brian's one of the shortest guys on the tour, but he's going to be in the fairway. And you get Colin Morikawa 7-iron versus anyone else's 9-iron. It's pretty much the same thing, right? So I think that combination can work well in foursomes. And you got to play Harman one way or another. And I think foursomes is the spot for him versus four ball because the birdies just aren't there with him.
Go ahead, Pat.
No, I was going to say getting into the bets a little bit, when we're looking at the board, it can be a little bit confusing because there's a lot of different bets out there. There's a lot of prop bets.
Yeah.
There's a lot of USA bets only. There's a lot of Europe bets only. Where do you see, where do you kind of look first and maybe see the most value on the board? And then what are your kind of go-to areas for props when you're first looking at it?
So I've got 6 different markets that I'm in. So I'll kind of scoot through them. But the general thought was to avoid the top overall points with any American, because there's a good chance that all 3 of the Euros play 5 rounds. Rahm, Rory, and Victor, they can play 5 matches, and then one of them is going to probably win 4 of those, right? So the Americans are a little deeper. They're not going to necessarily all have those 5 matches available. And then just the more matches you play, the more points you play. So I've avoided all the top overall for USA. I'm going top USA for those guys. And then I stick with Rahm and Victor in the top overall market because I'm kind of fading Rory a bit. His odds are shorter and hasn't pretty much played that well in Ryder Cups. I think he's batting at like a 500 right now for points. And we're talking about Rory McIlroy, right?
Yeah.
Justin Rose has got the same amount of total points as Rory, and he has played 5 less total matches. So he just really hasn't got it done. And now the pairings and things he could be paired with guys like Shane Lowry because it's going to be a better team outlook, but not necessarily the best for Rory, right? So he might have to be that anchor and crutch that people rely on. But that's pretty much for the overall markets there. And then want to roll through some top rookies and other bets?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Max Homa, I got him at plus 400 on points bet for the top rookie. I don't think, Wyndham and Sam Burns, I'm expecting them 3 to those guys to just play 3 matches, where I think Max could potentially end up playing 5 if he gets hot. Definitely going to be playing 4. He's an auto qualifier for that team, right? So out of all those guys over there, Max at 41 is awesome. And then Justin Rose is my top overall captain pick at 11-1.
Wow.
I really like Rosie this week. And you can, if you don't want to lay the 11-1 in the overall market, you can go to the European captain wildcard market and grab him on FanDuel for 380 plus 380 for a top Euro captain's pick. Like I said, he's a great player in Ryder Cups. He's the top point scorer in this field, tied with Rory, and 5 less matches. So he's a great putter from 15 to 25 feet, the best in the field. And that's where you can just land daggers. You think you're going to make a 2-putt and the partner just rolls in a birdie putt that just sinks your sip. And I think all he's got to fight there is Tommy Fleetwood, in that Euro captain's market. So
I kind of I want to stop you on that one. I had Tommy as a bet there for the top Euro captain's pick. I guess my only worry with Rose is the age and the Marco Simone terrain. And do we think he's going to play even 4 matches?
I mean, this just goes back to your ageism. You're just always going to be an ageist.
I mean, I'm getting older too, just like you, Pat, and I'm feeling it myself. And I think, that was my only concern with Rose.
No, it's valid. If you look at history, it would be the first time he doesn't play 4. He's played 4 or 5 pretty much every single time he's teed it up. So they really rely on him. And
he didn't play in Whistling Straits. So the last time he played would have been 2018.
Yeah.
So
there's that. But this team isn't nearly as deep as they'd hope. So they may have to rely on him to still get it done. There's ways you can maybe he plays 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday, and then kind of going in another singles match there, right? So gets himself some rest and relaxation in between. But he's a gamer, and if you think about when he plays in stroke play, or what do you say, scratch play earlier, crotch play. I think Rosie's he doesn't quite fit that format that well because he just makes these random doubles and boneheaded decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas match play, that's only going to cost you 1 hole. So I think he's totally fine from that perspective. Makes a ton of birdies.
Who do we think he gets paired with? Because that's the other thing you're thinking of with these top point scorer markets is if I'm taking a rookie or a captain's pick or whatever, I got to think to some extent who's this guy getting paired with? Is he going to be linked to a stud that feels like he's going to get the points in the team sessions the first 2 days, whereas like you already mentioned, Rory, could Rory be stuck with a guy like Shane Lowry, if you're down on Shane Lowry, or Højgaard, or what if they stick to two, what if they stick him to Bobby McIntyre? So with Rose, who do you see him getting paired with here?
I think that the Team Tea and Crumpet / Earl Grey squad is going to be Tyrrell Hatton and Justin Rose.
Okay.
The two British guys, the two Englishmen. I think I was checking it out. I can't remember if it was Rose or Hatton, but they were paired with Paul Casey quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not in the squad this year, but now it's Rosie. So I think it was Rose that was paired with Casey when he wasn't paired with Stenson. So put in another British guy with another British guy seems makes a lot of sense to me. And then I've got him playing with Rahm in foursomes. I think they're a great combination of salt and pepper, and that's going to be like one of the most random situations I have out there for the second session of foursomes. But I've got him playing with good guys. I don't think he's going to be the crutch that they're going to put with Højgaard and Ludberg and those Bobby Mack guys. I think they will put the three studs with one of those other three, rookies. So that's kind of how I'm projecting it to happen. It could land up with egg on my face and off we go. But who the hell knows, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see some of these pairings because, you just bringing up the was it the Fitzpatrick and Hovland pairing? Like, it'll be interesting to see if something like that pops out as opposed to what everybody thinks is going to happen, where it's like they're just going to pair them with their buddies or their countrymen or whatever. Because if you see that, and I think it's probably going to be more interesting on the U.S. side. For example, everybody just assuming that Homa and Cantlay or Homa and Morikawa are going to play together. And if they roll out and they're not together and it's this odd pairing, you kind of think, well, maybe there is maybe the U.S. team is digging deep into the data, but like Team Europe is supposedly doing with Edo Molinari on their side, and that's why we're seeing these unusual pairings.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the Zurich, right, it's one round of golf, but they shot 70 together, Colin and Max. Like, yeah, your buddies and stuff, and that was a fun round of golf to have got that together. I don't think their game molds. It does with those Max being a good putter, but there's other combinations that suit those two guys much better. So if you're going to want to win this thing, you might have to not play with your buddy at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they figured that out already and they'll play them in 4 balls or something together. But I think the foursomes is where those combinations really matter the most.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Pat.
No, I was just going to say one thing I really loved about the article is how you talk about, you list all the players and how many matches you think they might play. Poor Bobby Mack at 2. Poor guy. But for that, did you kind of go off of historical, like how many times they've played in the past, or was it kind of a guess? What was your, sort of, what were you looking for to choose what you think? Besides, like, we know Rory and Rahm and those guys are probably going to play 5.
Well, that's the thing is you start off with the guys that have historically played a lot, and then you kind of 5 for Rory, 5 for Rahm, 5 for Hovland. That just leaves 4 for the lot of other people, right? And then you can kind of look at history. Like Brooks will most likely play 4, 1 on the first day, 2 on the next, and then singles on Sunday. He's done that every single time he's played in a Ryder Cup. So there's some historic trends and things like that. But also, if you want to look at form and how they fit a certain profile, like Sam Burns, I don't think he's going to fit in a foursome situation. His game's just too inconsistent. He's one of the least accurate drivers of the golf ball.
Yeah.
He suits 4-ball, erratic volatility. You can have a bogey while Scotty's making the par. Whereas foursomes, he's going to put Scotty in the rough and in the bushes. Like Scotty doesn't want that nonsense. Give him someone more accurate off the tee like Max. So Brooks for Scotty, like imagine a Scotty Brooks pairing. I think that's just way better than a Sam Burns pairing. So just kind of seeing how their game fits the different formats and if they would even stand a chance of playing a 4th match in a different format that doesn't necessarily suit their gameplay.
All right. Give us some more bets, Byron.
Some more bets. All righty. So Brooks as the top American captain's pick seems like pretty much a smash play at plus 335 on Bet Rivers. I mean, you got to basically outduel Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, and JT, who I think are only going to play 3 times. And you got Ricky and Sam Burns, who I also think are only going to play 3. Whereas Brooks, he's going to have those 4 matches and probably just has to outduel Colin. So I really like that bet for him there. And then Scotty Scheffler, a smash play as the top USA point scorer. I think he's going to play all 5 matches.
That too.
Someone random might play 5-2. It might be Cantlay. It might be Max Homa. but I think Scotty's game just molds and translates so well to everybody else's game. You know, you compare him with pretty much anyone else, and you got a good pairing. So he's just too consistent, too good, and he's a match play beast, right? Anytime we've played match play, he's beat John Rahm to pretty much put himself on the world stage. He's always been in the mix down in Texas for the world match play. You know, he had the Shanks at the President's Cup and still kind of hung in there, right? Like that was Scotty D- situation, you know, still hanging in. So I think the guy we get right now is going to be incredible in match play, and it's going to be very tough to beat.
I've got a few bets I want to throw out to you.
Yeah.
I like this one. This is on DraftKings Market. You can pick a player to win 0 points.
Oh, yes.
Get no points.
I was just looking at
now,
that.
obviously, Bobby Mack at plus 275 is one thing. I like Højgaard at 3-1. I feel like Højgaard. I mean, I think. Well, actually, let's lead off with this question. There's going to be one guy on every team who's a rookie, captain's pick, whatever. Somebody's going to play way better than anticipated. That's going to happen. And right now, everybody assumes for the European side, I think it's going to be Ludvig Åberg, right? And for the U.S. side, it's probably, rookie-wise, it's probably Homa is what everybody's thinking in terms of Ryder Cup rookies. But, you know, who do you think that guy is on each team, the rookie that's going to surprise and shock people? Not necessarily captain's picks, because, like, JT's a captain's pick. He's a veteran. He's a killer in Ryder Cups. He's probably going to play fine. But rookies, who do you think could be the most likely guy to surprise on each team? And then what do you think about my Højgaard to win 0 points at 3-1?
So I've got Højgaard in 4 balls with John Rahm, which makes that bet seem a little scary to me.
Yep.
But, you know, that's all depending on the pairing. And I think these rookies, Åberg and Højgaard in particular, will be playing in the 4 balls, right? So that allows them to shine a little better, because their game, they can win a point without winning a hole as an individual, as long as Rahm or Victor dominates, right? So I think that's going to be very important to remember. Whereas Sepp Straka is going to be, I think he's going to be playing in the foursome side of things. And that could be the most random, like in DFS, if you want to roll out Sepp, I think he's going to be under-owned, he's cheap. And then you get him playing with, I got him with Tommy Fleetwood, who's like, I think their game matches up pretty nice and steadily. He's very accurate off the tee. I think that's what you want in foursomes.
Yeah.
So he can get rolling, and foursomes is first, right? So if they roll him out and he's like playing John Deere Sepp and breaking course records, throw his ass in the 4 ball in the afternoon again, you know, like that way you can, you know, save another big dog's 5th round. Maybe, you know, Victor or Rahm or Rory slips to 4 rounds for the event, and you've got an extra out of Sepp, you know. So I think he could be a sneaky Euro. And then if you want to avoid Max and go with a top, I think Brian Harman, again, in that foursome situation, I think you're going to get, what is he, 70-1 as a top point scorer? That's, a little unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if you go with a top rookie at 9-1 for Brian Harman, if he and Colin just dovetail the crap out of that foursomes, you never know. He wins that singles match on Sunday. That's 3 points for a rookie. And maybe that's what gets it done at 9-1. That gets chopped to 4.5-1. That's still pretty solid for a match play bet. So I think he suits the foursomes, you know, format really, really well. And if, again, that's the first tournament, the first format we're going to have on Friday. And if these guys in foursomes show some form, they might double down on that in the afternoon. So it's interesting. I think definitely waiting for those pairings to come out is going to be the way to go if you're kind of on the fence about a bet.
So I got a question on a bet here. And this one I feel a bit of a sucker bet, but I just want the math behind it. I want to kind of hear what you have to say here. But so the over-under on matches, total matches to go to 18 is at 10.5. So we've got 28 matches, right? So total. So it appears to be like, okay, and you know, you're looking at that and you're like, it's got to be the over, and it's minus 110 on both sides. But to me, that's a little bit of a sucker bet. So talk to me through that one, and if there's any math behind where that could probably go.
Yeah, like I mentioned, where I weighted the holes, you know, I only weighted 18 60%, which means that about 65% of matches make it to 18 only. So that's 2/3. And if it's minus 110, I would lean on that one. You know, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
It historically, since 2010, that's been the case. 65% of matches make it to hole 18. So, every single match has made it to hole 15. So that's kind of the situation that you're finding yourself in. And I think if you're getting basically a 50-50 split, 65% is more than 53%, right? So there's an edge there. So we'll see what cooks.
It's probably a fun bet just to like give you a week tournament long sweat too, because I mean, if it's not looking great for you on either side, whatever side you choose after the first 2 days, you've got 12 matches there on day 3 that you can sweat through.
Yeah.
And I think, Byron, you said one thing a minute ago. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't remind people is the dead heat rules applying here on a lot of these bets. So thinking through that, as I was kind of looking through some of my, top U.S. point scorers, stuff like that, like thinking through Xander and Cantlay, who are pretty much stuck together. I like to call them the disgusting brothers. They're, and I've seen some writers, pontificate on how that team could be split up, and they have been before. But, for me, it's kind of like if I'm betting those guys, I'm to be top point scorer or play all 5 matches, chances are they're both going to do it. They're both going to be given similar opportunities heading into their singles matches. So then it comes down to which one do I trust more, or do I just take a pick at a better value somewhere else? So thinking through the dead heat rules is something that you got to do with these bets, because you're likely to split some of these top point scorers for captains, rookies, etc.
Yeah, BetMGM, you might get worse odds, but usually they pay in ties in full on placement bets in normal matches. So I haven't really checked that out properly, but the odds might be shorter. But if you want to play the safe game, you can definitely go them. I'm assuming the odds will still be paid in full if there is ties for them.
Yep. Listen, Byron, we appreciate you joining the Better Sports Network's golf show today for the Ryder Cup. You're doing fantastic work over there at Roto Baller. Back 9 bets. Follow him at the Model Maniac. Anything else you need to plug while we're here?
I had never mentioned that I'm on USA Plus 100, baby. We are rocking and rolling.
Okay.
And it's in full swing. We are America all the way. And let's crush that 30-year drought, baby. Like, you guys have done a great job plugging me already, so there's no need for me to do anything more. I really appreciate the two of you and the stuff you guys get up to. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, we'll have you on again. Good luck with the rest of the week and all your bets, and thanks for the awesome content. Everybody needs to go check it out. We'll take a break. We'll come right back here on the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network.
Jake Ferguson, I think, is going to be one of the biggest frauds in fantasy, to be honest. I'm trading Jake Ferguson in Dynasty for anything right now. I'm trading him in redraft if somebody will take him. He scored the touchdown on a 1-yard play this week, but this guy, last week, he played 75% of the snaps, only ran 50% of the routes. This week, we were hoping that would change. He only ran 21 of 43. Not even half again. So we were hoping he would improve from 50, worse than 50. So Jake Ferguson, not the guy we want. And you saw it. I mean, if you watch the game, they weren't locked in on anybody. They had Hayden Hendershot out there, got a goal line carry. Luke Schoonmaker, the rookie, scored a touchdown. Like, they are not committed to just one tight end. And if you have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks and Tony Pollard, if the tight end isn't playing every single snap, then he's not relevant. I mean, even if the one guy was playing every snap, you're not going to get a Dalton Schultz because there was no Brandon Cooks last year, and Michael Gallup was coming off an ACL. So the conditions changed, and now this guy's playing a partial snap share. Sell Jake Ferguson now. And people tell me, oh, Dak Prescott loves throwing to the tight end. That's not even true. There was a guy on Reddit that just posted a study. His name is, like, I call cats or something like that. Great study, though, that showed that Dak Prescott doesn't target the tight end on an above average level. I mean, CeeDee Lamb got 156 targets last year. 156. And Michael Gallup and Noah Brown combined for 150. So, and the running backs combined for 85. So what is it? Does he love the tight end, but he also loves CeeDee Lamb, and he also loves the other wide receivers, and he also loves the running backs? Or just Kellen Moore just throw the ball a ton? That's what it was, right? So it's like this whole he loves the tight end situation, that's not even true, right? Or he just loves everybody. Maybe he does love the tight end, but clearly he loves CeeDee Lamb. No? Like, clearly he loves the running backs. So just don't worry about it. Forget about it. Trade Jake Ferguson for whatever you can get right now.
Now back to Tour Junkies.
Damn it! Hit one good fucking iron shot. I don't think you like that one.
On Better Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network, talking Ryder Cup action. Man, our boy Byron, the Model Maniac, he certainly provided plenty of good data for us. And if you haven't checked out that article, you got to go look at it on Rotoballer. Check out his Twitter page. Good conversation there with Byron. Talked about a few bets we like, Pat. And listen, the Tour Junkies show for the Ryder Cup is going to drop on our podcast feed and YouTube channel on Wednesday afternoon. And then we'll be putting up more content, bets, and stuff like that as the Ryder Cup progresses. But so I don't want to get into all of it right now, Pat. But let's maybe toss out a few more interesting bets that we like here on the Better Sports Network show, and we'll cover all of our favorite bets on the Wednesday afternoon Tour Junkies podcast. But any other quick bets you want to drop? Any things you're looking at before we move on?
Yeah, a couple here. I will say I do agree. I like Max Homa as the top rookie.
Yeah.
I feel like, I kind of feel like Wyndham Clark's getting brushed off a little bit, though. And Byron sort of did just then. I mean, I just feel like Wyndham Clark could be a sneaky, really good player. So
Sneaky.
Hey, Byron used sneaky a lot too. He uses it a lot, so I'm not the only one.
I do like Wyndham Clark. I think he'll play well. I think that the edge goes to Max based on the 4-0 President's Cup appearance, based on his connection with multiple players on Team USA in terms of being able to go from playing with, his buddy Morikawa to playing with possibly Jordan and JT, who he's also close with. Like I just see him as a more versatile player to have the opportunity to play more matches. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to for me in choosing Max Homa. But I do agree that Clark, I would expect Clark to have a good showing in the opportunities he gets.
Yeah, I agree there. So, and then I would say like the top U.S. point scorer. I feel like Xander could be a good one at plus 600. Xander just seems like he could play with anybody. He's got plenty of length. He's just got a total game that I feel like can really translate well to this course. He's got a good mentality for, whether or not he's, wherever he's playing. I just feel like he's never too up or down. I don't think the crowd's going to get into his head all that much. Xander to me at plus 600 feels like a pretty good bet as well, outside of the obvious like Scheffler and somebody like that.
Yeah, and I do have Scheffler click for that at plus 450 on DraftKings. That was who I picked, just because I feel more confident about maximizing Scheffler in terms of matches played, and kind of going back to what I was telling Byron, like with Xander and Cantlay, those two just seem so inseparable to me that I just think if I'm betting on one of them, I'm leaning further into a possible split and dead heat situation because of the opposite one, because of Cantlay or because of Xander. If you're taking Cantlay, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but let me give you this one. How about the over? DraftKings has the over under on halved matches total at 3.5, and the over is minus 125. So I don't know. I kind of felt like 4 total halved matches kind of made sense there out of 28 possible matches.
Okay.
I don't know what the data says about how many halved matches, but I think that's where like the data thing is, or it just gets tough because this does feel like one of those Ryder Cups that is way less lopsided than we're used to it being coming into it, right? Like 2021, it was lopsided. The U.S. on paper just looked to dominate, and they did. Now 2018, the same thing was true. U.S. looked to dominate, and we got dominated, right? I just think, and even at Hazeltine, it was actually more dominant than we may remember. I mean, U.S. crushed it in the singles matches, but the total score ended up, I think it was like, 17.5, 10.5 or something at Hazeltine. I just feel like this one's going to be closer. And with it being closer and with the level of talent being what it is and as deep as it is to me on both sides, I could see 4 matches getting halved.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, here's a crazy one.
Okay.
the American to hit the opening tee shot.
Yes,
This one feels like this could get compromised.
I was looking at those and I was like, what? I think that's a stay away for me. What do you got?
Well, I mean, first off, they're starting off with foursomes. Okay. So it's going to be alternate shot.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to start, you can dwindle it down a little bit there, maybe.
And this is where Byron's breakdown of that was very interesting because he kind of talked about looking through the holes. I think he said the better drivers of the ball need to go off the evens.
Yes.
And the better approach players, iron players, long mid-iron players tee off on the odds. So that's who you're looking at to start this. So who you got?
So you could potentially see Justin Thomas at plus 800 hitting the opening tee shot, having been literally the last guy pretty much on the team.
At 8-1?
At 8-1.
I kind of like that. I actually kind of like now that you say it, I kind of Captain Zach's like, we can't leave home. We can't leave JT at home,
Yeah.
And then now I'm going to show you the confidence. I'm going to put you out in front. You're our guy. You're our spirit animal leader guy. Yeah. Actually, that kind of gets me going.
Yeah.
8-1. I think I'm definitely in on that.
I might have to go ahead and fire in on that one.
All right. I don't want to hit on any more bets. We'll get all those out.
Yeah, I'll save them
on the podcast. But I do want to talk quickly through DraftKings DFS because if you don't know, DraftKings does offer DFS contests for the Ryder Cup. And it works similar to like Showdown, NFL Showdown, whatever. You pick a captain spot. They get 1.5 fantasy points for every, based on the regular scoring. They get points for holes won. They lose points for holes lost. They gain points for ties. For every hole that they don't play, they get points. So if they close out the match and they close it out, 3-2, they're going to get points for those extra couple holes that they didn't have to play. They get 5 points for winning a match, 2 for tying it. They get points for winning 3 holes in a row. They get bonus points for not having lost a single hole in the match. So it's a fun format. I've typically not played my same bankroll in Ryder Cup formats, but I do think it's kind of fun. So you can tinker around with the captain spot. I think the biggest thing is in your captain spot. I think you better believe that your captain playing all 5 sessions needs to be your captain. You can be cute other ways, but I think you just have to look and say, who's my captain? Who's going to play 5 matches?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you've played the WGC match play, DraftKings has done kind of a very similar type thing before. So that's really what you can look to. But yeah, I agree. You got to have that captain be a guy that's going to have a lot of matches.
Yep. All right. Good show. Good stuff. Good bets there. All of them discussed were a lot of fun. I love doing this. There's some fun prop markets, and it's going to get even more fun when the pairings are announced on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening for the start of everything on Friday. So check out the podcast. Follow on social media. We'll put out some plays on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff all weekend, as well as while we dominate our member guest event. So T's and P's for us for that too, by the way. We need all we can get. All right. Thank you. Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. We'll be back next week as the PGA Tour gets back up and running. We'll recap the Ryder Cup. See you. Out.